morning. The book of John, as you've just heard, has always been recognized to be different in character than the other three Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And for many Christians, the Gospel according to John is the most precious book in the New Testament. Many people find themselves closer to God after reading John than any other book. John is different. There's no account of the birth of Jesus in John. There's no account of his baptism. None of his time at Gethsemane, no account of the Last Supper, and nothing about his ascension. Whereas the first three Gospels have wonderful stories and unforgettable passages written so beautifully, John is argumentative. In the other three Gospels, the main scene was Jesus' ministry in Galilee, whereas John talks about his time in Jerusalem and Judea. One of the reasons for this immense difference between John and the other three is the fact that John was written much later than the others. It hasn't been proven, but it's quite possible that John read the accounts contained in the other three books and then decided to write in a different direction, things that were not written about by Matthew, Luke, and Mark. He did not write his book until the latter part of the 1st century A.D., and things had changed in the Christian world. The church as we know it now included Gentiles as well as Jews, and in fact was overwhelmingly Gentile. So you had a drastically different audience reading this book that he wrote in Ephesus. And as we look at John 16 that was read this morning, let's remind ourselves that Jesus often spoke without giving clear-cut, direct answers to his followers. In fact, nearly every point he had to make was in the form of a parable. That is, in the first three Gospels, which are often called the Synoptics. But now we see in the account of Jesus giving long speeches, dialogues with his opponents, and interviews with individuals. It's within these chapters of John that we view some very intense theological thinking. So when Jesus talks in today's passage, he's not saying, listen guys, let me explain it to you clearly. I don't think there's any instance in the Bible of that happening where Jesus would explain something. But rather, he was more mysterious. Instead, he simply promises that through all this heartache, all these struggles, it would end in their heart's happiness. You take the two sides of what you heard. In a little while you will not see me. In a little while you will see me. To me, that's a riddle. You will be grieved, compared to your grief will turn into joy. And bearing a child is painful, as opposed to the pain will go away because of the joy. Here we have Jesus telling the disciples to be patient and consider what the future will be like. He's asking them to faithfully endure the hardships that are surely forthcoming, because the blessings would be very, very precious. In other words, Jesus is saying, trust me. He doesn't have to explain the path. Just trust me. How about you? When you know the positive outcome of something will be a long time coming down the road, are you patient? Do you get impatient even though you know you shouldn't? I do. I remember coming home from Iowa last year. I was at the Christian Conference Center in Newton at a retreat that I'm going through the process of being a Christian minister. 8 hours of driving later, I pull into Fairview Heights, which is where we live. And I go to the store because I want to pick up some milk or something else. And it's late. I'm tired. They have these aisles that say 10 items or less. And so I get my couple of items. And I go stand in line behind this person. And I did what most people would do if they're serious about it. I counted the items in that cart. 1, 2, went on and on, 14. And I thought, can you not read? It says 10 or less. I'm getting impatient. There are 14 to my measly 2. Then the ultimate happens. This happened to me several times. They get out their cell phone and start typing on the cell phone instead of going through the line. At this time, I realized the prayers are not only for Sunday. Say, God, give me patience and give it to me now.
When I was outside,
I finally checked out and went home.
When I sit down on my floor.
What happened in that story, what you saw was a complete lack of patience. I failed as a Christian to show compassion and patience. I was quick to judge. Maybe they had been pulled over there by the cashier. That happens too, doesn't it? I don't know. But I failed. So for me, when you look at this passage in John, it's easy for me to understand what the disciples are going through. In a little while? What do you mean, a little while? When are you coming back? Jesus, we need you. Can you be more specific? But most important part of this passage in John is how Jesus outlines the life of the enduring Christian. First of all, there's a statement that grief will turn to joy. There are times that being a Christian has not been anything but sorrow. Remember the persecutions of Christians, yesterday and today. Remember that when your faith costs you dearly, it is not the end of all things, and joy will follow. And not only will it follow, it can never be taken away, and it's complete. It is everything. We are not perfect human beings, far from it. But we have a forgiving God, a loving God who is everywhere, and everything reflects His glory. We don't always understand the path, and we don't always know the direction that leads us. But Jesus told the disciples something for all of us to follow. The promise was clear. Be joyful, because He will make it happen. What is your greatest joy? Is it your family? How about your church family? Your friends and neighbors? Or is it those kids that we saw last week doing the thing that they did from Bible school? I looked around when they did that, and if you'd taken the time, you would have seen nothing but smiles. The children got it right. What you saw in those singing children, the dancing, the twirling around, the jumping, the energy struggles and trials that we go through, like in the song we just heard, are really the mercies in disguise. I want to read from you a passage from the Bible. It's the 23rd Psalm. Now, I'm going to read a different version because this is the Native American version. I have this on my wall at home in my office. And I look up at it. It's so beautiful. The imagery shows and demonstrates exactly what John is talking about in chapter 16. The two sides. You will not see me. You will see me. It goes like this. The great Father above, a shepherd chief is. I am his, and with him I want not. He throws to me a rope, and the name of the rope is love. He draws and draws me to where the grass is green and the water is dangerous not. I eat and lie down, and I am satisfied. Sometimes my heart is very weak and falls down, but he lifts me up again and draws me into a good road. His name is wonderful. Sometime, it may be soon, it may be many, many moons. He will draw me into a valley, and it is dark there. But I'll be afraid not, for it is between those mountains that the shepherd chief will meet me. And the hunger that I have in my heart all through this life will be satisfied. Sometimes he makes the love into a whip. But afterwards he gives me a staff to lean upon. He spreads a table before me with all kinds of foods. He puts his hand upon my head, and all the tired is gone. He fills my cup till it runs over. What I tell you is true. I lie not. These roads that are my way ahead will stay with me through this life. And afterward, I will go to live in the big teepee and sit down with the shepherd chief forever. Let yourself trust Jesus and look forward to that day when you will sit down with the shepherd chief forever. What a glorious day that will be. Amen.